There is a memory that does not belong to you. Not in the way you normally think of memory, not as something that happened on a Tuesday afternoon in a place you can name. This is older. It lives deeper than anything your conscious mind has filed away. It sits in the architecture of your cells, in the coiling of your DNA, in the rhythm your heart falls into when you are not trying to control it. And right now, in this very moment, something inside that ancient record is beginning to stir. Not because someone told it to, not because you performed the right ritual or said the right words. It is stirring because a threshold has been reached, one that your ancestors, stretching back through centuries you will never read about in any book, encoded into the very substance of your body. You are not just living your life. You are living theirs too. And the activation you are feeling, that restlessness, that strange pull towards something you cannot name, that sense that the ground beneath your ordinary existence is shifting, that is not anxiety. That is not confusion. That is your bloodline waking up. Most people hear the word ancestry and think of genealogy charts, surnames, perhaps an old photograph in a drawer. They think of it as history, as something behind them completed. But what if ancestry is not behind you at all? What if it is inside you, running in real time? And what if the signal it carries has been waiting for exactly this moment in your life to become loud enough to hear? That is what we are going to explore together. Not in vague terms, not in comfortable abstractions, but through the actual mechanisms, biological, quantum, and experiential, by which the past is not past at all. It is present. It is active. And it is, right now, asking something of you. Let us start where science has already confirmed what indigenous traditions have said for millennia. In the early 2000s, researchers at Emory University conducted a study that would quietly reshape how we understand inheritance. They exposed mice to the scent of acetophenone, a chemical that smells like cherry blossom, while simultaneously delivering a mild electric shock. Over time, the mice developed a fear response to that specific scent. That part is standard conditioning, nothing remarkable. But here is where the ground shifts. The offspring of those mice who had never been exposed to the scent or the shock displayed the same fear response, and so did the generation after that. The grandchildren of the original mice flinched at cherry blossom, despite never having encountered it. The fear had been inherited, not through learning, not through observation, but through the biological material itself. This is the field known as epigenetics, and it has dismantled the old assumption that DNA is a fixed blueprint. Your genes are not just instructions, they are also a recording. The methyl groups that attach to your DNA, the chemical tags that determine which genes are expressed and which remain silent, these are not set at conception and left alone. They are shaped by experience, by trauma, by triumph, by famine and feast, by war and peace, by the quality of love available in a given generation. And those markings pass forward. You are walking around right now with genetic annotations that were written by people whose names you may never know, in response to events you will never witness. Their fear is in your body. Their resilience is in your body. Their unfinished emotional business is in your body. And so is their power. Think about that for a moment. Really let it settle. The tightness you carry in your chest that no amount of therapy seems to fully dissolve. The inexplicable draw you feel toward certain landscapes, certain sounds, certain kinds of work. The way you react to authority, or to scarcity, or to the threat of abandonment, with an intensity that seems disproportionate to what is actually happening in your present life. Some of that is yours, yes, but some of it is an echo, a signal still reverberating from a life that was lived before yours began. If this is resonating with something deep inside you, take a moment to hit the like button and subscribe so you do not miss what comes next. Epigenetics tells us the what. The tags are there. The expression patterns are measurable. The inheritance is real. But it does not fully explain the how at the deepest level. For that, we need to go further. We need to look at what is happening at the quantum scale inside your own biology, because that is where this story becomes not just fascinating, but genuinely transformative. In 2010, a team led by physicists at the University of California demonstrated something that had been theorized but never directly observed in a biological context. They showed that quantum coherence, the phenomenon where particles exist in a state of interconnected superposition, maintaining correlation across space and time, was not limited to laboratory conditions near absolute zero. It was happening inside living systems. Specifically, in the photosynthetic complexes of green sulfur bacteria, energy was being transferred with near-perfect efficiency because the system was exploring all possible pathways simultaneously, a hallmark of quantum behavior. The biological world, it turned out, was not too warm, too wet, too noisy for quantum mechanics. It was using quantum mechanics, actively. This finding opened a door that has not closed since. Quantum biology has since identified quantum effects in bird navigation, in enzyme function, in the sense of smell, and most provocatively, in the microtubules inside neurons, the structures that Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff proposed as the seat of quantum computation in the brain. If consciousness itself has a quantum dimension, and if quantum systems are defined by non-locality, by the capacity to maintain correlations that transcend ordinary spatial and temporal separation, then the idea that ancestral information could be accessed not just through chemical tags on DNA, but through a deeper field of coherence is no longer mystical fantasy. It is a hypothesis with a physical scaffold. Here is what this means in plain terms. Your body is not a closed system running on inherited chemistry alone. It is a quantum system, entangled at levels we are only beginning to map, with the field of information that your lineage has been contributing to for thousands of years. When you feel something stir that you cannot trace to any event in your own biography, when a dream delivers imagery from a time and place you have never visited, when you find yourself suddenly knowing how to navigate a situation that your conscious experience has not prepared you for, you may not be imagining things, you may be receiving. Now, there is a word that indigenous cultures have used for this kind of reception for as long as oral memory extends. Different traditions use different terms, but the underlying concept is remarkably consistent across continents and centuries. The Aboriginal Australians speak of the dream time, an ever-present dimension where ancestral beings continue to shape reality. The Yoruba tradition holds that the Ori, the spiritual head, carries the destiny and accumulated wisdom of one's lineage. In the Andean cosmology of the Quechua, the concept of Aini describes a reciprocal exchange of energy between the living and the ancestors, a flow that is not metaphorical but functional. The Norse traditions encoded ancestral memory in the concept of Orlog, a kind of primal layer of fate written by the actions of those who came before, upon which the individuals wired. Their personal destiny is woven. What is striking is not just that these traditions exist. It is that they describe, in their own language, exactly what epigenetics and quantum biology are now confirming. The past is not sealed. It is a living current. And the relationship between the living and the dead is not sentimental. It is operational. There is a reason this work touches people deeply and still does not always move their reality. It is not because they are not ready. It is because no one has shown them where to look. There is something underneath all of it, quietly running the show. I am hosting a free live transmission where I walk you through exactly what that is and how to finally shift it at the root. The link to register is in the description below. Save your seat. The moment you see this, you will understand why you could not see it before. I want to pause here and ask you something. Have you ever felt an emotion, a grief, a fear, a sudden surge of strength that you could not trace to anything in your own life? Tell me about it in the comments. What did it feel like? And when did it arrive? So let us bring this out of the theoretical and into your body right now. Because this is not just an idea to consider. It is an experience to notice. Take a breath. Not a performative one. Not a deep, dramatic inhale. Just a natural breath. And as you release it, let your attention drop from your head into your torso, into the space behind your sternum, into your gut, into the deep belly, the place below your navel that so many traditions identify as the seat of ancestral energy, the hara in Japanese practice, the lower dantian in Chinese medicine, the khanda in certain yogic systems. Now ask yourself, without trying to manufacture an answer, what is here that I did not put here? What am I carrying that is older than my own experience? You do not need to get a clear answer. The question itself is the activation, because the moment you direct conscious attention toward inherited material, you change its expression. This is not metaphor. This is the observer effect operating at the level of your own biology. The observer effect, one of the most replicated and least understood findings in all of physics, demonstrates that the act of measurement changes the state of a quantum system. In the classic double-slit experiment, particles behave as waves, passing through both slits simultaneously and creating an interference pattern until a detector is placed to observe which slit they pass through. At that point, the interference pattern collapses. The particle behaves as a particle. Observation does not just reveal reality, it selects it. Now extend this principle inward. The epigenetic tags on your DNA, the ones written by ancestral experience, are not fixed commands. They are probabilities. They are tendencies waiting for a context to express or suppress them. And one of the most powerful contexts is awareness itself. When you bring conscious, sustained attention to a pattern you have been running unconsciously, a fear response, a contraction, a limiting belief that feels older than you, you are performing an act of observation on your own inherited code. You are collapsing a probability wave. You are selecting which version of the ancestral signal gets expressed. This is why certain therapeutic modalities that work with the body rather than just the mind, somatic experiencing, certain forms of breathwork, ancestral constellation work, even specific meditation practices, produce changes that feel disproportionate to the effort involved. They are not just processing your personal history. They are reaching into the epigenetic layer and changing the readout. They are completing something that has been waiting, sometimes for generations, to to be completed. There is a specific phenomenon that many people report, but rarely discuss because it sounds too strange to say out loud. It is the experience of grieving something you never consciously lost, a sadness that arrives without a story attached to it, a sense of mourning that does not correspond to any event in your life. Sometimes it comes in waves, sometimes in dreams, sometimes in the middle of an ordinary afternoon when nothing has gone wrong. You feel the weight of something ending, something being released, but you cannot name what it is. This is ancestral processing. This is what it feels like when an inherited emotional charge, one that was encoded into your biology by someone who did not have the safety or the capacity to process it themselves, finally finds a nervous system willing to feel it all the way through. You are not breaking down. You are breaking through. And the breakthrough is not just for you. If epigenetic markers can be written by experience and passed forward, then the completion of an emotional process in your body can alter what gets passed forward too. You are not only healing yourself, you are editing the code for those who come after you. Let us go deeper into the mechanism, because the specificity matters. Your autonomic nervous system, the one that governs your fight, flight, and freeze responses without your conscious input, does not distinguish between a threat you are experiencing now and a threat that was encoded into your biology before you were born. To your amygdala, to your vagus nerve, to the deep survival architecture of your brainstem, an inherited terror and a present moment danger feel identical. This is why you can be sitting in a perfectly safe room, with no rational reason to be afraid, and still feel your heart rate climb, your breath shallow, your muscles brace. Your body is not reacting to the room. It is reacting to a signal from another time, carried forward through the epigenetic record, amplified by a nervous system that cannot tell the difference between then and now. This is not a flaw. This is a feature. Your ancestors survived because their bodies encoded danger signals and passed them forward. The ones who did not do this, the ones whose offspring had to learn every threat from scratch, were less likely to survive. You are here reading this because your lineage was exceptionally good at recording and transmitting survival information. The problem is not the mechanism. The problem is that the mechanism does not have an off switch. It keeps running the old programs even when the original threat has been gone for centuries. But here is the part that changes everything. The same mechanism that transmits fear also transmits power. The same epigenetic architecture that carries the imprint of trauma carries the imprint of mastery, of courage, of creative genius, of spiritual depth. Your ancestors were not only people who suffered. They were people who built, who loved, who created, who stood in the face of impossible odds and found something inside themselves that was equal to the moment. That capacity is in your code too. It is sitting right next to the fear, written in the same language, stored in the same medium. And the reason you may not have accessed it yet is not that it is not there. It is that the fear signals are louder, because the survival system prioritizes threat over opportunity, always. So the work of ancestral activation is not about adding something you do not have. It is about changing the volume. Turning down the inherited alarm signals that no longer correspond to real danger, and turning up the inherited capacities that have been waiting, silently, for a context safe enough to express them. And this is where the quantum dimension becomes not just interesting, but essential. Because classical biology gives you a model where you are stuck with what you inherited, where the best you can do is manage the symptoms of ancestral programming. But quantum biology gives you something else entirely. It gives you the possibility that observation, intention, and coherent attention can alter which potentials in your inherited field actually manifest. If you are ready to take what we have been exploring here even deeper, listen closely. Have you spent years chasing manifestation, visualizing, affirming, raising your vibration, only to watch the same patterns repeat? Every traditional method assumes the same thing, that you are separate from what you want. That separation was never real. You were chasing a signal you were already broadcasting. Beyond the frequencies, a quantum guide to consciousness mastery walks through all 9 frequencies, from the dense transmissions trapping you, through the ascending currents, to the master frequencies where consciousness becomes the field. Every method you tried sent a signal outward. This one tunes the signal you already are. Every day you delay, your nervous system broadcasts the same old signal, and breaking free gets harder. So move on it tonight. The link is in the pinned comment below. Now let us return to the ancestral code and how it reshapes from within. Think of your ancestral inheritance as a superposition. All of it is there simultaneously: the trauma and the triumph, the fear and the fortitude, the contraction and the creative power. In quantum terms, these are all possible states coexisting in the system. What determines which state manifests is measurement. Observation, the direction of conscious attention. When you unconsciously identify with the fear patterns, when you let the old alarm signals run without awareness, you are collapsing the wave function in the direction of limitation. You are selecting, without knowing you are selecting, the diminished version of your ancestral inheritance. But when you bring awareness to the process, when you consciously choose to attend to the strength, the wisdom, the resilience that is equally present in your code, you collapse the wave function differently. You select a different outcome from the same set of possibilities. This is not positive thinking. Positive thinking operates at the level of the conscious mind, which is a thin layer on top of a vast unconscious architecture. This is something deeper. This is changing the observation point at the level where the inherited code is being read. It is not about telling yourself a better story. It is about shifting the frequency at which your biological system resonates, so that different information in the ancestral record becomes available. I am curious. What is the one pattern in your life that has always felt older than you, like it was already running before you were even born? Drop it in the comments. Sometimes naming it is the first step in changing the code. Let us talk about frequency for a moment, because it is not just a metaphor in this context. Every cell in your body is an oscillator. It vibrates at a measurable frequency. The heart generates the strongest electromagnetic field in the body, measurable several feet away with sensitive instruments. The brain produces oscillations that we categorize as delta, theta, alpha, beta, and gamma waves, each corresponding to a different state of consciousness. And these frequencies are not just outputs, they are inputs. They determine what information your system can receive and process. The HeartMath Institute has spent decades documenting what they call coherence, a state in which the heart's rhythmic patterns become smooth, ordered, and sine wave-like, and in which the heart, brain, and autonomic nervous system synchronize. In states of coherence, cognitive function improves, emotional regulation stabilizes, and the body's capacity for self-repair increases measurably. But here is what is most relevant to what we are exploring. In states of coherence, the system becomes a better receiver. the noise floor drops, the signal-to-noise ratio improves, and information that was always present but previously drowned out by the static of stress and reactivity becomes accessible. If your ancestral inheritance is a field of information, and if your body is the receiver, then coherence is the tuning. The activation of ancestral power is not about performing a dramatic ritual. It is about bringing your system into a state where it can actually pick up what has always been broadcasting. There is a practice that brings this from concept into direct experience, and it is specific enough that you can do it right now, wherever you are. Place one hand on your chest, over your heart. Place the other on your lower belly, below the navel. Close your eyes if you can, or soften your gaze. Now breathe in a rhythm that is slightly slower than your habitual pace. 5 counts in, 5 counts out. As you breathe, bring your attention to the space between your two hands, the vertical column of your torso. Do not try to feel anything specific. Just attend. Now, on your next exhale, silently ask this question, directed not to your mind, but to your body, to the cells, to the inherited architecture itself. What did you survive so that I could be here? Sit with whatever comes. It may be an image. It may be a sensation. It may be nothing you can name, just a shift in the quality of the silence. Whatever it is, do not interpret it. Just receive it. Because the act of receiving, of opening the channel between your conscious awareness and the deeper biological record, is itself the activation. You are not performing the activation. You are allowing it. The difference matters. There is a reason this is happening now, not just to you personally, but collectively. And the reason has to do with something that is rarely discussed in spiritual communities, because it sounds too much like science, and rarely discussed in scientific communities, because it sounds too much like spirituality. The Schumann resonance, the electromagnetic frequency generated by the cavity between the Earth's surface and the ionosphere, has been measured consistently since the 1950s. For decades, its fundamental frequency held steady at approximately 7.83 Hz, which happens to correspond closely to the alpha brainwave state, the state associated with relaxed awareness, light meditation, and the threshold between conscious and unconscious processing. In recent years, monitoring stations have recorded significant spikes in the Schumann resonance, with bursts reaching into the 40, 50, and even above 60 Hz range, frequencies that correspond to gamma brainwave states, the states associated with peak performance, heightened perception, and what meditators describe as moments of unity consciousness. Whether these spikes represent a permanent shift or periodic fluctuations is still debated. But what is not debated is that the electromagnetic environment in which your biology operates is changing. And since your nervous system is an electromagnetic instrument, tuned by millions of years of evolution to resonate with the planetary field, changes in that field change what your system can access. Think of it this way. If the Schumann resonance is the carrier wave, and your ancestral inheritance is the signal encoded on that wave, then an increase in the carrier frequency means more bandwidth. More information can move through the channel. Patterns that were previously below the threshold of conscious detection become perceptible. Inherited capacities that required a higher activation energy to express can now express. The planetary context is literally lowering the barrier to ancestral activation. This is why so many people, across cultures, across belief systems, across levels of spiritual practice, are reporting the same cluster of experiences right now. Vivid dreams involving unknown ancestors or unfamiliar historical settings. spontaneous emotional releases with no identifiable trigger. Sudden clarity about life purpose that feels less like a decision and more like a remembering. Physical symptoms, particularly in the spine, the gut, and the heart, that medical examination cannot explain. A growing sense that something enormous is shifting, not outside but inside, at a level deeper than personality. These are not symptoms of disorder. They are symptoms of activation. Your system is receiving more signal than it is accustomed to processing, and the adjustment period can feel disorienting. But the disorientation is not a sign that something is wrong. It is a sign that the receiver is being upgraded. Now, there is a shadow side to this, and it would be dishonest not to name it. Because ancestral inheritance is not all wisdom and power. It is also pain. It is also the unprocessed grief of generations, the rage that was never safe to express, the love that was never allowed to land, the truth that was never spoken because speaking it would have meant death. When the activation intensifies, this material surfaces too. And if you do not have a framework for understanding what is happening, it can feel like you are falling apart. You are not falling apart. You are falling open. And the distinction between those two experiences is not in what they feel like. It is in how you relate to what you feel. When inherited pain surfaces, the instinct is to do what your ancestors did with it. Suppress it. Override it, push through, survive. That is the program that kept them alive, and it was the right program for their context. But your context is different. You are not fleeing a famine. You are not hiding from an invading army. You are not trapped in a system that will punish you for feeling. You have something your ancestors, many of them, did not have. You have safety enough to feel. And that is the gift you give backward through time. Not literally, not in the sense of changing historical events, but in the sense of completing the emotional circuit. When you allow yourself to fully feel what an ancestor could not, when you let the grief move all the way through your body instead of locking it in your jaw, your shoulders, your lower back, you are doing something that has a tangible biological consequences. You are changing the epigenetic expression. You are altering which tags are active and which go silent. And because these changes can be inherited, you are changing the code not just for yourself, but for your children and their children, and on forward into a future you will never see. This is the real meaning of ancestral power. It is not about claiming some romanticized lineage or inflating your identity with the achievements of the dead. It is about recognizing that you are a node in a living network that extends backward and forward through time, and that the quality of your awareness, right now, in this moment, has consequences that ripple in both directions. There is a concept in quantum physics that illuminates this beautifully. It is called retrocausality, and it is exactly as strange as it sounds. In certain interpretations of quantum mechanics, particularly the transactional interpretation proposed by John Kramer, events in the present can influence the past. Not in the crude science fiction sense of traveling backward in time, but in the mathematical sense that the wave function includes components that propagate backward in time, so-called advanced waves, and that the transaction between the past emitter and the future absorber is what determines the outcome. The present does not just receive from the past, it confirms the past. It selects which version of the past becomes real. If you apply this to your ancestral inheritance, the implications are staggering. Your conscious engagement with the inherited material is not just processing, it is co-creation. You are not merely the product of your ancestors' choices. You are, through the quality of your attention and the depth of your awareness, participating in which version of the ancestral story becomes the operative one. The past is not fixed. It is a probability field, just like the future. And you are the observation point where both collapse into actuality. This is why the activation feels so significant. It is not just personal development. It is not just healing. It is a fundamental renegotiation of your relationship with time itself, conducted through the medium of your own biology. Let us bring this into another layer of practice, because understanding without embodiment is just philosophy, and philosophy without practice changes nothing. Think of a pattern in your life that you have tried to change and failed. Not a habit, something deeper. A pattern in your relationships, or in your relationship with money, or with authority, or with your own body. Something that keeps recurring despite your best efforts. Something that feels almost fated, as if it has a momentum that predates your decision-making. Now consider the possibility that this pattern is not yours, not originally. Consider that it was written into your system by someone who lived in a context where that pattern was the best available strategy for survival. Maybe it was a pattern of self-erasure, developed by an ancestor who lived under occupation and learned that visibility meant death. Maybe it was a pattern of hoarding, developed by someone who survived a famine and whose body never stopped believing that scarcity was imminent. Maybe it was a pattern of emotional withdrawal, developed by someone who loved deeply and lost everything and decided, at a cellular level, that the cost of attachment was too high. You have been trying to change this pattern by addressing it at the level of your personal psychology. And that is not wrong, but it is incomplete, because the pattern is not rooted in your personal psychology. It is rooted in your biology, in the epigenetic record, in the ancestral field. And to change it at that level, you need to do something different. You need to bring it into full awareness, feel it completely without resistance, and then consciously choose a different response. Not once. Repeatedly. Because each time you do, you are writing a new annotation on the code. You are telling the system, through the language it actually understands, which is the language of lived experience, that the old threat is over, that a new response is possible, that the inheritance can be updated. This is not quick work. It is not a single meditation or a weekend workshop. It is a practice in the truest sense, a daily willingness to meet the inherited material as it surfaces, to feel it without being consumed by it, and to choose, again and again, the response that reflects your present reality rather than your ancestors' past. But here is what makes it different from ordinary self-improvement. You are not doing this alone. The moment you engage consciously with the ancestral field, you gain access to the accumulated wisdom of every person in your lineage who faced a similar challenge and found their way through. The resilience is there. The courage is there. The creativity is there. It has always been there, encoded alongside the pain, waiting for someone with enough awareness to tune into it. And there is something else. Something that the quantum framework makes room for, but that classical thinking cannot accommodate. When you activate the power side of your ancestral inheritance, when you begin to live from the wisdom and strength that your lineage has accumulated, you do not just change your own experience. You change the field. You become a different kind of signal in the collective, and that signal is received by others who share your lineage, whether they are conscious of it or not. This is not magical thinking. This is coherence. A coherent signal in a field influences the other oscillators in that field. Your family, your community, your culture, these are not separate from your internal state. They are expressions of it. And as your internal state shifts, as the ancestral code is read differently through the lens of your expanded awareness, the external expressions shift too. You may have already noticed this. You begin doing inner work, and without any direct conversation, your relationships change. A family member calls out of nowhere. An old conflict dissolves without being addressed. A child in your life begins to exhibit a freedom or a confidence that you did not explicitly teach them. These are not coincidences. They are coherence effects. The field is responding to your shift. Consider sharing this with someone you know who has been carrying weight they cannot explain. When you pass along these ideas, you are not just forwarding a video, you are extending the coherence field itself. The act of sharing creates an energetic ripple, reinforcing your own understanding of these principles, while opening a channel for someone else's ancestral code to begin its activation. That ripple does not stop with them. It moves through their lineage, their relationships, their field. One act of sharing becomes a node in a network of awakening that neither of you can fully see, but both of you will feel. There is one more dimension to this that deserves attention, because it is the one most people skip. And skipping it is what keeps the activation incomplete. Gratitude, not the performative kind, not the gratitude journal variety, but the deep, bone-level recognition that you exist because an unbroken chain of human beings, stretching back into the mist of prehistory, survived. Every single one of them. Not one link in that chain broke. Every one of your ancestors lived long enough to pass the signal forward. Through ice ages and plagues, through wars and famines, through heartbreak and betrayal, and loss beyond what you can imagine, they held on. They kept the line alive. And the result of that unbroken chain of survival is you, sitting here, breathing, aware, capable of the very consciousness that can now reach back and honor what they carried. When you feel that gratitude, not as a thought, but as a physical sensation, a warmth in the chest, a softening behind the eyes, a settling in the belly, you complete a circuit. You close the loop between the past and the present, and in that closure, something releases. The ancestors, if we can use that language, are not asking you to carry their pain forever. They are asking you to feel it, to honor it, and then to set it down. To take the power and leave the suffering. To live the life that their survival made possible, fully, freely, without the weight of unprocessed history dragging at your heels. This is the activation, not a dramatic event, not a lightning bolt from the sky, but a gradual, deepening recognition that you are more than your personal history, that your body is a library written in a language older than words, that the power you have been seeking outside yourself has been inside you all along, encoded in the very cells that make up your flesh, waiting for the moment when you would be ready to read it. And that moment is now. Not because someone declared it, not because a calendar says so, but because you are here, listening, attending, willing. The activation does not require your belief. It requires your attention, and you are already giving it. So as you move forward from this moment, carry one practice with you. Each morning, before the noise of the day begins, place your hand on your heart and take 3 slow breaths. On each exhale, silently acknowledge the change. Not with words necessarily, but with feeling. Feel the weight and the wonder of being the current expression of an ancient line. Feel the responsibility and the privilege, and then ask, not with your mind, but with your body, what wants to come through today? What capacity, what wisdom, what strength is ready to express? And then listen. Not for a voice, not for a message. Listen for a shift in the quality of your own presence, a steadiness that was not there a moment ago, a clarity that feels less like thinking and more like remembering, a quiet, unshakable sense that you are not alone in this, that you have never been alone in this, that the very blood in your veins is carrying a message from everyone who came before you. And that message, stripped of all its complexity, reduced to its simplest possible form, is this: we made it. Now it is your turn, not to survive, to live. The greatest activation of your ancestral power is not a future event. It is a present recognition. It is happening in your cells right now, in the space between your heartbeats, in the silence beneath your thoughts. All it asks of you is that you stop long enough to notice. If something in this stirred you, if you felt even a flicker of recognition in your body, not just agreement in your mind, but something deeper, something cellular, then stay with it. Do not let the next distraction wash it away. Subscribe to this channel so that the next time we go this deep, you are here. Leave a comment, not for the algorithm, but for the field. When you put into words what you felt, you anchor it. You make it real. You add your signal to the collective coherence. And share this with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who has been carrying weight they cannot explain. Someone whose bloodline is ready to wake up. You will know who they are. You have always known.